Hi, Mystery Recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain an action comedy movie called Kick-Ass. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie opens with a voiceover from our protagonist, Dave Lazowski. He introduces himself as an ordinary teenager who is mostly invisible to everyone in his high school, except his two friends, Todd and Marty. He often fantasizes about women and has a crush on his classmate, Katie Duxma. As an avid comic book reader, Dave always thought that his life would change drastically after a personal tragedy. However, when his mother died of an aneurysm, he found that for regular human beings, life simply moves on. One day, at a local comic book cafe, Dave and his two friends discuss how no one has ever become a superhero in real life. Marty replies that being a superhero requires superpowers, or a vast amount of wealth. Their conversation is interrupted when Chris, the son of a local mobster, Frank D'Amico, arrives at the cafe. Dave feels sorry for him as he has a lot of money but is always seen by himself. He then approaches the loner boy to invite him for lunch, but Chris's personal bodyguard rudely sends him away. As they head out of the cafe, Dave and Todd are robbed by a pair of street gang members. Frustrated by the injustice, Dave returns home and decides to take matters into his own hands. Inspired by their conversation about superheroes at the comic cafe, he orders a green-colored diving suit off the internet and fits 2 batons to the back. He then begins to train himself to become a crime fighter, determined to make a difference in the world. Elsewhere, in a warehouse, mafia boss Frank and his crew are questioning one of his associates, Trey Hernandez. A few days ago, Trey was charged with overseeing a drug deal with a Russian gang, but he alleges that a vigilante dressed as Batman beat his men and took away the drugs before they could even reach the Russians. On the other hand, Frank has heard a different story from his Russian partners. According to them, Trey stole all the drugs and sold only a fraction of what was promised, at a substantially higher price. The ruthless drug lord believes it is more likely for Trey to be an untrustworthy person than for a Batman vigilante beating several drug dealers. Thus, he orders his right-hand man Joe to torture and subsequently kill him. On the other hand, former cop Damon McReady spends his time training his 11-year-old daughter Mindy in the art of self-defense. He demonstrates the importance of wearing a bulletproof vest by shooting her at close range. "Don't worry, sweetheart, I'm just gonna shoot you," but assures her that she is safe. Meanwhile, Dave continues to train to become a superhero, but his fear of jumping across buildings still holds him back. One day, he sees the men who had robbed him and Todd attempting to break into someone's car. Though scared, he puts on his suit and confronts them, hiding a baton in his back. He then puts up a brave fight, but ends up getting stabbed, and the robbers manage to escape. As if that's not all, Dave stumbles onto the road and gets hit by a car, which quickly drives off. When the paramedics arrive, Dave asks them to hide his suit, worried about people finding out his identity. A few days later, Joe reports to his boss, Frank, that someone by the name of Trey Hernandez just sold more drugs to the Russian gang. He suspects that the Russians cooked up a fake story about being sold the drugs at a higher price. Enraged that he's losing money, Frank orders him to get back the drug shipment. The following night, Joe abducts and interrogates the Russian boss in a lumber warehouse. When the latter says that Trey Hernandez is still selling him the drugs, Joe shoves him in a giant industrial microwave and turns it on, killing him brutally. Meanwhile, Dave is discharged from the hospital after recovering from his injuries. Due to the car accident, he now has metal plates supporting his body, and also has a higher threshold for pain due to some damaged nerve endings. When Dave returns to school, he is surprised as Katie starts a conversation with him. She even invites him to hang out with her, offering to treat him to coffee. This excites Dave, and he rushes to inform his friend about it. Unfortunately, Marty explains that Katie likes lame ducks, and reveals that the entire school thinks Dave is a gay prostitute. I don't remember that part. The poor boy is horrified by the revelation, but he eventually accepts his new social standing, as it is the only way to be close to Katie. He's also determined to be a superhero and sets up a MySpace account for his alter ego. He thinks for a while, and then comes up with a unique username, Kick-Ass. One night, while looking for a lost cat, Dave notices 3 men viciously attacking a guy in front of a diner. Dave rushes to his aid and successfully beats off the attackers, beats him off with both hands. His metal plating fighting and the inability to feel pain proves to be an advantage for him. Some patrons from the diner record the fight and post it on YouTube. In no time, Kick-Ass becomes an internet phenomenon and is quickly circulated throughout the media. Chris also watches the latest reports with his parents and is visibly impressed. As Kick-Ass gains more popularity on his website, he also gains the attention of Damon and Mindy, who have been working as vigilantes for a while now. Mindy believes that Kick-Ass has potential, but Damon is unimpressed. There's nothing cool about wearing spandex. Later, Katie and Dave are at a restaurant having an awkward conversation. She changes the topic and reveals that a guy named Rasul has been bothering her lately. This enrages Dave, and he advises her to reach out to Kick-Ass for help. Katie loves the idea, and she decides to give it a try. That night, Kick-Ass confronts Rasul and his thugs and warns him to leave Katie alone. When they do not budge, she tries to tase Rasul, but gets pinned to the ground instead. Fortunately, Mindy, dressed as Hit Girl, arrives in the nick of time and saves him. She reveals herself as another vigilante and introduces her father as Big Daddy. The trio then fights off the remaining gang members, with the father and daughter doing most of the work. Once the task is complete, Mindy steals all the gang's money and escapes through the rooftop with her dad. But since Kick-Ass is scared of heights, he hesitates to follow them. Feeling that he's not a real hero, Dave returns home and cries himself to sleep. Later at night, Big Daddy and Hit Girl pay a visit to Dave at his house. They praise him for his bravery and tell him that he has the potential to be a great superhero. They also reveal that they were able to trace his MySpace account and urge him to be careful with his online activities. Big Daddy advises Dave to take his training seriously if he wants to be a part of their team. He also instructs him to decorate his MySpace page with an on vacation banner if he ever needs their help. After the two leave, Dave is once again motivated to carry out his superhero activities. On the other hand, Joe shows Frank a picture from the day where their drug shipment was looted. He reveals that one of their associates clicked it before he was killed. The photo contains a back shot of Big Daddy, but since they don't know about him yet, Joe suspects it might be Kick-Ass. In the next scene, Big Daddy and Hit Girl kidnap one of Frank's men, Cody. They handcuff him to the car's steering wheel and extract information about Frank's business dealings. After getting all the necessary information, the father-daughter duo crush the car, killing him on the spot. In another part of the city, an officer named Marcus visits Damon's house and discovers his collection of weapons. Here, it is revealed that the two used to be partners. Damon was in fact framed as a criminal by Frank and sentenced to prison. This caused his wife to spiral into depression and eventually commit the unthinkable. Mindy was then left in Marcus's care, while Damon trained in secret to become a vigilante and seek revenge against Frank. Upon his release from prison, he reunited with Mindy and continued to train her as a partner. In the meantime, Frank mistakes a Kick-Ass imitator for the real deal and brutally beats him to death, but he soon learns about the mistake and loses his cool. Chris, who has been eavesdropping the whole time, barges into the office with an alternative plan. He wants to pose as a superhero named Red Mist, who is inspired by Kick-Ass. He will then corner one of Frank's men during a drug deal and submit him to the police. Hopefully, this will allow Chris to get inside Kick-Ass's trusted circle. The plan works flawlessly as the media catches wind of Red Mist capturing a high-profile drug dealer. He then reaches out to Kick-Ass on his MySpace page, and the two meet a few days later. Red Mist offers to be a superhero sidekick and even shows off his flashy sports car to make a good impression. This is enough to convince Kick-Ass, and the duo heads to Frank's warehouse in the car. However, when they get to their destination, the warehouse is burning to the ground. They hurriedly rush inside and see that everyone is already dead. Red Mist then snatches a teddy bear from the shelf and runs out with Kick-Ass. Just as the building explodes, the two superheroes part ways. Meanwhile, Frank sees the destruction from afar and worries for his son. But seconds later, Chris returns and shows him the camera's footage that he had previously hidden inside the teddy bear. It shockingly reveals that Big Daddy was the one who killed all of their men and burned the warehouse. With their enemy now identified, Frank convinces Chris to use Kick-Ass and set up a trap for Big Daddy. On the other hand, Dave decides to give up on crime fighting after his close encounter at the burning warehouse. But one night, he sees spam emails from Red Mist requesting his help. This eventually changes his mind, and he decides to don his Kick-Ass suit once more. During their meeting, Red Mist reveals that they're being blamed for killing the guys at the warehouse. He then convinces Kick-Ass to contact Big Daddy for help. Afraid of the police coming after them, our naive hero obliges by posting on vacation on his MySpace. Damon and Mindy soon notice the distress signal and ask Dave to meet them at one of their hideouts. Following this, Red Mist and Kick-Ass drive to the location while being discreetly followed by Frank's men. When they arrive at the hideout, Big Daddy is surprised to see Red Mist, but he lets both of them in anyway. Unfortunately, this turns turns out to be a grave mistake, as Red Mist immediately shoots Hit Girl in the chest, causing her to fall out the window. Frank's men then barge in and knock both Big Daddy and Kick-Ass unconscious. Meanwhile, at Kick-Ass's MySpace, a countdown starts for the unmasking of the mysterious superhero. But, in a horrifying twist, a live video feed pops up, showing Kick-Ass and Big Daddy handcuffed to chairs. Frank's men then start hitting the two ruthlessly, and soon splash gasoline on Big Daddy. At this critical moment, Hit Girl, who survived thanks to her bulletproof vest, sneaks into the hideout. She shuts down all the lights, and using her night vision goggles, attacks the men inside. One of the bad guys manages to light her dad on fire, but even as he burns, Big Daddy guides Hit Girl in combat, enabling her to finish off everyone. After the coast is clear, she finally extinguishes the fire, but it is too late. Her father is badly burnt, and he shares one last moment with her before passing away. At least there aren't bees this time. In the aftermath of this incident, Hit Girl uncuffs Kick-Ass, and the two return to her home safely. They then recuperate for a while, and come up with a plan to avenge Damon's death. Following this, Mindy shows up outside the building where Frank's office is located. She poses as a schoolgirl who has lost her way home. Having never seen her face before, the bad guys let her inside. Just as one of them kneels to offer his phone, Mindy stuffs a pistol in his mouth and shoots him dead. This catches the others off guard, and she easily defeats them one by one. Mindy then swaps into her Hit Girl costume and gets into the elevator to reach Frank's personal office. Along the way, she uses her agility and flashy moves to eliminate several bad guys. However, there are so many of them that she eventually runs out of bullets and gets trapped behind a counter. Just as she's about to get killed, Kick-Ass arrives to her rescue. He is hovering right outside the window using his new jetpack. Attached to his shoulders are two mini machine guns that he uses to incinerate every bad guy present there. In the meantime, Frank and Chris overhear the commotion from inside their office. When the gunfire subsides, they assume that their men have succeeded in eliminating the two superheroes, but, to their dismay, Hit Girl and Kick-Ass barge into the office, determined to finish the drama once and for all. An intense showdown then ensues between the two factions, with Frank battling with Hit Girl while the boys square off against each other. Frank turns out to be a great fighter, and he eventually overpowers the young girl. He then prepares to finish her off, but Kick-Ass fires a goddamn bazooka at them. This sends Frank flying out the window, where he explodes into pieces. After the dust settles down, Chris slowly rises to his feet. He pulls out a sword and proceeds to attack the superheroes, but it's too late. Kick-Ass and Hit Girl use the jetpack and fly off the building. Minutes later, the duo lands on a nearby building rooftop, and Kick-Ass unstraps the jetpack. Hit Girl then finally takes off her mask and reveals her true identity. The scene then cuts to several days later, and we learn that Damon's old police partner Marcus has become Mindy's guardian once again. Dave has now stopped being Kick-Ass, but his actions have inspired several youngsters to follow in his footsteps. Many of them will surely die. As for Red Mist, he has designed a new supervillain suit and is plotting vengeance against the superhero.